Thank you for joining us today at Wildly Undivided. If you enjoy these studies, hit the thumbs up and subscribe. This is the end of the matter, Ecclesiastes. So if we go back and we remember the first chapter in Ecclesiastes, what are we talking about? Vanity. What is vanity? Yeah, I like that. It's a senseless pursuit of trying to achieve something that's not worth achieving. It's achievable, but does it actually bring the value that you desire? And so what he said in the beginning was that everything we experience in this life is like chasing after wind, trying to harness and run and try to outpace the breeze. It's impossible. Or grasping vapor is literally what vanity means. It means to reach out and try to take hold of the clouds. Like you can see the clouds, you can experience the clouds, but when you try to hold the clouds, it's impossible. It looks solid, but it's actually a vapor. It's a passing wind. It's a passing gas. That theme under the sun, our career, finances, certain types of relationships like pleasure and things like that, they're all fleeting. They're all vanity. They're all useless. They don't bring the value of a purposeful life. It doesn't satisfy. And then he talks about how time will pass us all by. We will all go from generation to generation, be forgotten and left behind. And then death comes for everybody, that there is none who can escape death. Jesus alone has escaped death, but he first had to die to be resurrected from the dead. And then we get to the end, and this is what he says. Remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near, of which you will say, I have no pleasure in them. What must we remember? And why should we remember it? What is the author trying to explain, right? Here's the teacher teaching us, and he's saying, when you're young, remember your Creator before it's too late. So why must we remember the Creator? And what is the timeline? What is too late? How do you define too late? Ultimately, it's going to be death. But what he does here is he kind of walks us through parts of life. As we age, as we grow from a youth, a young adult into old age, and the experience that brings. And so he talks about the bent over back, and he's going to talk about the grasshopper that doesn't leap so well. The concept is, as you grow old, there will be a time where there is no time to repent. So he says, remember also your Creator in the days of your youth, before the evil days come and the years draw near, of which you say, I have no pleasure in them. And I've experienced this. I've seen this, where old people don't want to be alive anymore. There's just this switch that clicks and says, I don't want to be here. How many there's a suicide epidemic among young people in our modern culture, which is unprecedented. It's never happened in history. Young people have always been bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, and hopeful for the future. And we have just destroyed all hopes and dreams for young people. We've indoctrinated them in a hopeless pursuit. But generally speaking, hope is for the youth, young people who have their futures ahead of them. And then you get to an age where you say, I have no pleasure in my day-to-day life. That doesn't mean you're not feeling or experiencing anything good. It just simply means you don't want to be alive anymore. And he says, look, you need to remember God, your Creator, before you get too old. Because there will come a time where all of your theology, all of your belief as a child will solidify. It is extremely difficult to change your beliefs after a certain age. That's why when people come to Christ, most of the time, they're young. They're very young, or they're just young adults. It's rare when you get a 70 or 80-year-old person saying, I used to be and of this persuasion, and now I am changing. It's kind of that concept of old dogs learning new tricks, right? Like it's not normal. It happens because God is a God of miracles and he is a very gracious God. So there is a time where it will be too late. So we need to remember our Creator. Why does he call him Creator? Why is it so important to recognize God as the one who has created all things and has created us? Because he has dominion and control, so we can worship him. For the sheer knowledge or wisdom of it, recognizing his creatorhood, so we don't misplace our worship, so that we worship him and not the creation. Now, something happens when we reject God as the creator. Something happens. God actually punishes us. And he says, you choose the creation that I gave you over me, the creator. I will abandon you, and you will do things that are not fitting for the human body. If your intellect, if your heart rejects God as the creator, your heart will become darkened, your mind will be filled with foolishness, and therefore you will pursue more dark things that are not fitting. So let's read this. Romans chapter 1. So I'll break this down as we read it. Verse 18, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men, who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. Listen, man's actions suppress the truth. Well, what truth is it? What can be known about God is plain because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world in the things that have been created. So they suppress the truth that God is the creator. God's invisible attributes and his eternal power and divine nature are clearly seen in creation. But people are suppressing the truth of God by suppressing him as creator. Okay? So they say in the things that have been made, so they are without excuse. Verse 21, for although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools and exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man, birds, and animals, and creeping things. Okay? So they rejected God, they suppressed him as a creator, and they became futile in their thinking, and their hearts were darkened. They thought that they were enlightened. They thought that they had come to a new perspective of how amazing they are. And yet they became dark and foolish. 24, therefore God abandoned them. God gave them up in the lusts of their hearts to impurity, dishonoring their bodies among themselves, because they exchanged the truth about God for a lie, and they worshiped and served the creature rather than what? The creator. The truth of God as the creator, they exchanged for the lie that God is not the creator. And they worshiped and served the creature, God's creation, over the creator, who is what? Blessed forever and ever. Amen. Listen, for this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions, for their women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. And the men likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion one for another, men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves the due penalty of their error. 28, and since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind to do what ought not to be done. So when people reject the fundamental belief that God is the creator, this sequence starts to take place. Their hearts, their minds, their intellects, their desires, their passions, God continues to remove himself from them. He gives up on them. He abandons them. And what is the number one result of that abandonment? What does it describe? Unnatural relations. Leaving the normal, natural way and taking what? The unnatural way. What do we call that in our society? Homosexuality, lesbianism, all the alphabets. You notice how for the past 100 years, we have been rejecting God at one fundamental level. In the beginning, God did not create. That's the fundamental belief that has been pushed through the school systems in our entire culture. And over the past 100 years, we recognize the homosexual community more and more and more and more until you start getting into the normality of it and then even calling it marriage. And then not only endorsing it, but promoting it and pushing it and propagating it and then twisting it to the extreme. Boys and girls can be boys and all the things. Like the duality of I can change genders and in a fluidity. All the nonsense that we've seen in the past 10 years. There is a progression. It says God gave them up. He let them go. Why? They did not acknowledge him as creator. So if we go back to Ecclesiastes chapter 12, he says, remember what? Remember your creator in the days of your youth. It is foundational. It is fundamental. Remember him. When? Before it is too late. God created you. He created me. He created us with a purpose to exist, to live, to breathe, to be whatever he so desires. And the whole point of Ecclesiastes up until this point was, we are not in control. You pursue wealth and you lose it. You pursue health and you lose it. You pursue a perfect life, righteousness, goodness, and wisdom, and you die young. We are not in control. We did not create ourselves. We are the creation, produced by the Creator for his good pleasure. So we have to remember him before it's too late. Now let's look at this process of getting old. Verse 2. Before the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are darkened and the clouds return after the rain, and the day when the keepers of the house tremble and the strong men are bent and the grinders cease because they are few, and those who look through the windows are dimmed, and the doors of the street are shut, when the sound of the grinding is low, and one rises up at the sound of a bird, and all the daughters of the songs are brought low. They are afraid also of what is high, and terrors are in the way. The almond tree blossoms and the grasshopper drags itself along, and the desire fails, because man is going to his eternal home, and the mourners go about the streets. So he says, verse 2 through 5, one day we'll find the doors shut. One day, all those young women who would go around singing and shouting and having fun when you were a child, when you were young, and you were that person running and singing, and then when all the people you know have grown old, when all your friends when you were children have grown old and died, and you're the last one remaining. That's where it says there's no one peering through the window. The darkness has taken hold. There's no one grinding because they're all gone. When there's terror, you're scared of a bird flying through the air because you're alone. Remember your Creator before the day when you have nothing and no one. And then he talks about verse 6. This is an iconic imagery. Before the silver cord is snapped, or the golden bowl is broken, or the pitcher is shattered at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern, and the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the spirit returns to God who gave it. Have you ever heard of the silver cord? The breaking of the silver cord? I heard it a bunch as a kid, apparently. It's an iconic concept that our life is this silver string, and it's so beautiful and elegant, and you just pull it out in your fingers, but if you pull it too tight, it snaps. Or it's a precious bowl that holds all the substance of your life that when you drop it, it breaks. It's gold, and yet it shatters. The concept of our life is that when you're young, it's beautiful, it's wonderful, it's so exciting. You have vigor, you have good tendons and joints, and you have good eyesight, and you can hear really well. But all of that goes. It all fades. We go towards what? Dust. We return back to the dust. And there's a separation of the body and the soul. The body goes down into the earth. That decaying jar of clay, as it says in 2 Corinthians 4, that this pot that is so weak finally fails, returns back to the earth, and then our spirit goes back to who? Our Creator. The one who created it, who placed it, is now receiving the Spirit back again. Not in some mystical way where you become God or assimilate into Godhead. That's not what it's talking about. He's saying the dust returns to the earth as it was, and the Spirit returns to God who gave it. Verse 8, vanity of vanities, says the preacher, all is vanities. Death is inevitable. He started with this in the beginning, and he's ending it at the end of the book. Death is inevitable. No matter what we do, the money we make. I just listened to a podcast with Kevin O'Leary. It was actually pretty fun to listen to. But this guy has gone from rags to riches, and he's a multimillionaire, maybe a billionaire. I don't even know what his net worth is. But you know what? You know what I thought of? That dude's going to die. And everything he built, the only thing that remains is his name. And in 100 years, who's going to remember it? Can you name all the presidents? Some of the most influential people in history? I can name like 4 out of 100. The most important people to us as a civilization, we don't know their names. All vanity. Vanity to vanity, says the preacher. So now let's look back again, because this whole concept is wisdom. So the vanity of life, the value of wisdom, its potency, and its powerlessness. So wisdom is good and has power, but it's limited. These studies are recorded live with God's people. We encourage you to find a study in a Bible-believing and teaching church and connect with God's people in God's Word. Have a blessed day. So he says in verse 9, besides being wise, the preacher also taught the people knowledge, weighing and studying and arranging many proverbs with great care. The preacher sought to find words of delight, and uprightly he wrote words of truth. What is that a description of? What's the job title? If I said this is a description of the job that you're going to do, what would be the title of that position? A rabbi? Okay. Who is it in our society that teaches people knowledge, weighing and studying and arranging many wise things and taking great care in education? Professors. He's a professor. It really is a professor. Somebody who has given their life to studying, to knowledge, to comprehension, and then what? Turning around and giving that knowledge and training people and building them up. It'd be a university level person. So this is what he's saying. Look, besides being just smart in general, wise in general, I'm a professor. I've studied, I've arranged, and I've given books. I've written, I've compiled, I've brought all the truth I could find. He wrote words of truth. Why? Verse 11, the words of the wise are like goads and like nails firmly fixed are the collected sayings. They are given by the shepherd. He did all of this for what? What reason? They use an example of goads and nails. What do nails do? I think we can relate to nails really, really well. They hold things together. They hold things up. This whole building is made out of nails. You can build something with nails. You can take a little truth, a little knowledge, and when you apply it properly, when you stick it in the wall and hit it with a hammer, and you fix it, you can build something stable and strong. You can build a life with nails. What about goads? What do goads do? We're not farmers. Farmers use goads all the time. Nope, close. It has something to do with oxen. So if I'm standing behind a yoke of oxen with bridles in their mouth, I can steer them. I can keep them joined together. But how do I get them to move? A whip or a goad? It's a poker. So there's goads that have a straight piece that you just poke. It's a sharp piece, and you would poke them in the leg or the thigh. Not enough to make them bleed or anything. They just feel it. They're like, oh, it's time to go. You ever see spurs on a cowboy? The little things on the back of their heels? They are goading the horse. They're jabbing the horse in the thigh, and the horse is like, oh, time to move. The more they goad them, the faster they move. So they would poke them with a stick from behind to push them forward. Or it could have a hook on it, so a point and a hook, and they could kind of tap them on the side of the leg and kind of stab them. When Jesus shows up to Paul, and Paul says, who are you? What's going on? I'm confused. Jesus gives him a statement, and he says, Paul, it's difficult to kick against the goads, isn't it? Why would you kick the goads? So if the animal's in front of me and I poke them at their rear end, what is their natural response? To kick. But what is that? And they kick their leg. Well, if I have a pokey stick and I poke them and then they kick, what happens? They stab themselves with the goad. So there's a famous statement of Jesus telling Paul, hey, it's difficult when you kick, isn't it? I'm prodding you. I am goading you with the goads, and you are kicking against me and injuring yourself. And so wisdom is meant to push us forward. Wisdom is supposed to push us and goad us to take steps forward. So they're like nails that hold firm, that we can build structures and put things together. But also, they're meant to be sharp. They're meant to hurt. When you read a proverb and it says, you're lazy, that's meant to hurt. When you read a proverb and it says, you're an idiot, that's meant to hurt. It's meant to make you feel something negative to result in action moving forward. And for it to stick like a nail. Exactly. So this is what he says. Look, the words of the wise are like goads and like nails firmly fixed. Listen, this is the collected sayings, and they are given by the shepherd. The shepherd cares for the sheep. The shepherd tends to the flock. He'll go so far to break a sheep's leg so he can save the sheep's life. So all that said, wisdom is powerful. It's good. But then he says, verse 12, my son, beware of anything beyond these, of making many books there is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. Like, hold on. You just told me that this is goads and nails and the shepherd is giving it to me. But if I study, I get weary and there's no end to books. We need to be cautious. Not every book is good. Not every goad is positive, right? If your shepherd is there and he's telling you to go forward, that's good. But if a thief breaks in and is goading you, he's trying to steal you. Those are bad goads. The instrument is the same. So there is no end to the wisdom. There is no end to hearing people's opinions or ideas. People will always have something to say. How is it that we've had libraries for millennia And yet we're still filling more and more libraries. We are constantly generating more information. There's always more to be said. But we need to be alert and aware. There's a limit to wisdom. And that's been a very big theme in the book of Ecclesiastes. That wisdom is good, but even wisdom is vanity. Even wisdom has its grasping of air, living under the sun. After all that, he says this, verse 13. Listen, this is the end of the matter. All has been heard. Fear God, keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God will bring every deed into judgment, with every secret thing, whether good or evil. What's the first step? Fear God. Can you guys help me understand the fear of the Lord? It's a difficult thing to teach, so I need you to help me. Okay, thank you. Yeah, it's the beginning of wisdom. You started by saying we are wrong, so we're sinners. And God is mighty and powerful. He's the creator. And we would say he's holy, right? Is that kind of where you're going? That in his might, in his grandeur, in his splendor, we are so small and so insignificant that we can admire him, we can love him, we can adore him. But in reality, he is so much more than we are. He is so much more powerful, more splendorous, more holy, more gracious, more kind, more strict. In every way, he is more. And that's a scary idea, right? It's a scary thought. That's like living in California in a high-rise apartment with earthquakes every day. You're at the top of the tower and you're in this wonderful building that's just amazing. It's so big and it's strong. But if you get caught in that building during an earthquake, that is probably the most scary place that you could be. And being in the presence of the Lord, he is all things perfect, and we are so corrupt and debased. That's a scary place to be. I like that. So the fear of the Lord is self-accountability, that God is seeing all the secret things. And this is what he says right there. He says, every secret thing. Every good secret thing and every bad secret thing. That is accountability. Yeah, absolutely. Who's all been sunburned before? That's like if hell were $1 billion, a sunburn would be 1/10 of a penny. Right. It would be nothing compared to the actual amount. Revelation 14. What's interesting is this is an angel flying through heaven, preaching the gospel. It literally says it's going out there to preach the good news. So it says, verse 6, then I saw another angel flying directly overhead with an eternal gospel to proclaim to those who dwell on earth, to every nation and tribe and language and people. And he said with a loud voice, fear God, give him glory, because the hour of his judgment has come, and worship him who made heaven and earth, the sea and the springs of water. The fear of God is this right here, to give him glory, to worship him as the creator of heaven and earth. And who gives water? You see that? Who gives water? Who has made heaven and earth, the sea and the springs of water. As people who live in the desert in a modern era, we don't appreciate water like we should. You know, because when you leave your house in the morning, there's literally a flood of water going down the street in the desert, okay? But in reality, if we lost power, we would all die of thirst within a week. We would have no water in this entire valley, and everybody would be running to Lake Mead, and people would be getting murdered consistently. Water is life. God has created the heavens, the earth, and what? Every spring of life. Every drink and drop of water he has created for us. And so we admire him. We give him all the glory. We worship him as our creator. That is the fear of the Lord. He deserves all the glory. We don't. He is magnificent. We are malevolent. God is the creator and we are the creature. That's the fear of the Lord. And then he says, keep his commandments. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 4. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 2. You shall not add to the word that I command you, nor take from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God that I command you. Your eyes have seen what the Lord did at Baal Peor, for the Lord your God destroyed from among you all the men who followed the Baal Peor. But you who held fast to the Lord your God are all alive today. So what does it mean to keep his commandments? To be diligent to know his commandments? I like this text because it says this: do not add nor subtract. Those are two faults that you will find in a cult. They will add to God's word, adding requirements for righteousness or requirements to get into heaven, or they would subtract. They would subtract the certain truth, details, or facts of the reality of God's theology that he has given us, and they would withhold the truth. And so he says, if you are to obey my commandments, you cannot add nor subtract. You must hold the words that I have given you. I have spoken them. Do not speak your own words, and do not subtract my words. Adhere and hold fast to my words. And then he gives an example. He says, hey, you remember all those guys who rebelled against my commandments at Baal Peor? Yeah, they're all dead. But everybody else who held fast to me, you're alive. Obedience brings life. Disobedience brings death. Then he says in Deuteronomy chapter 10, 13, and to keep the commandments and statutes of the Lord, which I am commanding you today for your good. What was the intent of God's commandments? Our good. They're good. God's commandments are good, and they're meant for good. Don't add to them. Don't subtract them. They're good. They're good for you. They're meant to result in good. All right. Judgment for secret things. Revelation 21. Verse 1. Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea was no more. I saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, behold, the dwelling place of God is with man. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will be with them as their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes, and death shall be no more. Neither shall there be mourning, nor crying, nor pain any more, for the former things have passed away. Now, what does that have to do with judgment and secret things? It's the culmination of all good things. God is going to come with a new earth, a new heaven, and he is going to dwell with us, and we are going to dwell with him. He will be our God, and we will be his people face to face. There will be so many people that we need more land. So you know what he's going to do? He's going to get rid of the oceans. And we're all going to live on the entire planet together. It's going to be amazing, spectacular. No more tears, no more pain, no more suffering, no more mourning, no more death. Death will be overcome. Why will death be overcome? The sting of death is sin. There will be no more sin. The sting of every tear is sin. Every pain is sin. There will be no more sin. What a joyous thing. What a wonderful thing. There's no higher hope than what we just read. And then he goes on and he talks about the lowest depth of despair and hopelessness that will ever be. There will be those in the presence of God in joy and peace, every tear wiped away, death removed. And then there will be those held in derision and judgment, and they will experience God's wrath for every secret thing. Verse 11, 20 verse 11. Then I saw a great white throne and him who was seated on it. From his presence, earth and sky fled away, and no place was found for them. And I saw the dead, great and small, standing before the throne, and books were opened. Then another book was opened, which is the book of life. And the dead were judged by what was written in the books, according to what they had done. And the sea gave up the dead who were in it. Death and Hades gave up the dead who were in them, and they were judged, each one of them, according to what they had done. Then death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. This is the second death, the lake of fire. And if anyone's name was not found written in the book of life, he was thrown into the lake of fire. So everyone will experience the first death, but not everybody will experience the second death. How can you escape the second death? Your name has to be written in the book of life. Everybody is born once. Everybody dies once. Not everybody dies twice. The people who do not die twice have been born. If you are born again, you will not receive a second death. But if you have only been born once, you will receive a book with your name. And in it will be every single action, everything done under the sun, every secret, heart, thought, idea, intention. The murder, the envy, the adultery, the rape, the jealousy, the pride, the arrogance, the wrath. Every intention of the heart is written down in a book. And a judge will open that book, read it from cover to cover, pronounce judgment, and you will be cast into the lake of fire. That is God's judgment. So when we say fear the Lord, obey his commandments, because judgment is coming, it's a very serious statement. The author of Ecclesiastes, though he has said a lot of important things, has never said anything quite as important as this. And that's why he ends with this. It's the crescendo. It's the cherry on top. It is the thing at the end of the sermon when the preacher says, if you have not heard or listened to a thing I've said, tune in now. Listen to this. The end and the duty of all mankind, the responsibility, the obligation as the creature of God's creation is to fear him, to obey his commandments, because he will hold every secret thing in judgment. Remember him in your youth. Obey him for your life. Fear him and worship him and give him the glory, because one day he will sit as a judge on his throne and pronounce judgment.